thing tows this tractor like it's not even there. All right, now we're going on the service call you guys have all been waiting for. I'm finally going back to the 9510R. Remember that one that had oil in the coolant? Oh yeah, look at that. And we did some fan drives on it, and remember the turbo noise that it was doing? Yeah, that one. Also had a broken exhaust manifold stud. Finally going back there today. He was able to get done with the tractor, so we kind of put it on the back burner and was dealing with all the other catastrophes until that point. So now we're trying to get done all the stuff that we got lingering out there from the spring. So I got a turbo and exhaust manifold just in case some bolts break off, and an EGR cooler, and we're gonna rip this thing apart and get it fixed up and get it done for him. So the oil cooler, I had it sent off and it came back tested bad. So that is where the source of the oil was coming from, getting into the coolant. So I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys or not. I know a lot of you guys were wondering how that was going to come back. So oil cooler was bad. So I'm going to get in. We're actually going to be working in an air-conditioned shop today. All right. Well, here it is. We're getting pampered today with the accommodations of an air-conditioned shop. It's pretty nice in here. But the tractor made it. Pretty tough tractors. So right now I'm draining the coolant, and it looks pretty good. Not too bad. We're gonna drain the engine block down. I did notice that the coolant tank was getting dark again. I opened it up. It did have a little bit of residual oil on the top, which is typical with the amount of oil that was in the cooling system on this. You almost never get it all out, so it'll collect there at the top of the system. I'm going to take that tank off and soak it in some Dawn and try to wash it out the best I can. But it could also be from this EGR cooler putting soot into the cooling system. So I'll be taking this pipe off right here, and we'll look inside there. We'll be able to tell if this EGR cooler is cracked and putting soot into the coolant tank. So we'll check that out. Got to get the hood in service position, and I got to unload all the parts and everything. I brought my good step stool. I brought a table for parts and tools. We got turbo, exhaust manifold, EGR cooler, and all the fixings. So I'll get this hood in service position, and we'll get started once this coolant's drained. All right, it's time to get tooled up. Let's get a couple trim sticks. Probably those. Strikeful screwdrivers, pry bars. Flex head ratchet, 1/4 inch, 3/8, high speed. Gonna need the 9-degree impact. What else? We're gonna probably need some extensions. I'm grabbing X-Core, long one, 6, 3, should be good there. Probably gonna need that. Oh, new tool alert. So I got these new Matco stubby bits. So I've got all the sets now. I've got the Torx. Yeah. So they're in foam. They're stubby. impact rated, and then you can put one of those on a 1/4 inch impact swivel, and it's really small and you can fit that in really tight areas. So we've got the Torx, and then we've got standard Allen and metric Allen. So these are about 80 bucks a set, but they're really nice, and you buy once, you cry once, warranted for life. So like those, we're going to need this entire rail. What else? We're going to need, I got the, some more new tool alert. So this is Matco extra deep turbo clamp sockets. So I've got a 13 and a 7/16. This one's 7/16, and then I've got a 10. No, for Cummins engines, they like to use 10. But we're going to use these. These are 1/4 inch drives, so I'll use them on my 1/4 inch high speed ratchet for the turbo clamps on this tractor. Do we need 1/2 inch stuff? I'll grab a 15 and a long extension for the exhaust manifold nuts. You got to get aggressive. Okay, got my magnet trays out, got all my parts organized and sorted. Now we need some weapons. Definitely going to need a stubby. How much juice you got? 2 bars? That'll run for a while. We got a extra 5 amp there. Probably gonna need mid torque. Probably gonna need a little tappy. What else? Now we're gonna need some wrenches. Probably that one. 4-way, 15/16, 7/8. 5/8, 16, 3/4. Let's grab all those. Metric wrenches. Double box 15. We're gonna need 10, 13, 15. So I always stack these wrenches up where I'll have a regular wrench and a ratchet wrench right next to each other, so you can just grab all at once. I think that's it. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is get all the shields and everything peeled off here again. All right. Before we get too excited, we're gonna soak everything down with Seafoam Deep Creep. Best penetrant oil I've ever used. So I'm gonna try to spray every single one of these exhaust nuts and studs and everything. You gotta give yourself a fighting chance. And we'll take the 1/4 inch ratchet and the turbo socket, 13 millimeter. Take this guy off. Done. Yeah. And we're gonna move this pipe over here. And we're just gonna bungee it up out of our way. Perfect. So now I'm gonna get this tank off so we can get it soaking in some Dawn. All right, first thing we're gonna do, get the zip ties cut for the turbo speed sensor. Disconnect the turbo speed sensor, disconnect the VGT actuator. Check. Now we'll take the coolant lines off the VGT actuator. Get this exhaust pipe off. Man, I tell you what, those sockets right there are the bee's knees. I'd still be ratcheting that off with a wrench. 13. So that is the clamp for the turbo oil supply. Now, let me tell you what, these will fight you to the bitter end. I'm going to take this coolant pipe off for the EGR cooler. Alright, now we got some wiggle room. Come on. Yeah. Those are fun. All right, so we got the supply line off. One thing I like to do is I like to, as I come apart, I like to locate the new parts that need to go on it to make sure that I have it so I can get ahead of it and get it coming so it's not too late. So I went ahead and got the new O-ring, got it put on that line right there. We're good there. Now I'm going to take the turbo drain pipe off. Those turbo drain line bolts have got serrated heads on them, so they dig pretty hard into that line, but you don't want those coming loose. So you always know where those go. This air pipe off. That's off. I already know we got a gasket for that. I already seen that. Now we just need to start taking these turbo mount bolts loose. We can just zip off with the old mid torque. It won't care. Just like that. Get the double box gear wrench. Oh man. Now, words of caution. You can only just break it loose. You will get your wrench stuck in there so bad you'll never get it out. So you break it loose, and then you got to Johnny in wrench that thing all the way off. That's why I use a snap-on flank drive open end. Those don't slip. The fastener will fail before that wrench will slip. Watched a video on the torque test channel. They took one of these 15 millimeter snap-on flank drive open ends and they put 300 foot-pounds on it before the metal on the nut came off. Of course, you know, it rounded the nut off, but the wrench did not fail the fastener until 300 foot-pounds. I'm like, yep, that's believable because I've been using them for years. They work pretty good. Your wrench won't get stuck on this side. So this turbo is pretty heavy. I'm going to get these tools out of the way because it's about to get real. If we were outside, we'd be using the crane to get this turbo on and off, but we ain't got enough room to swing it in here. And I would rather be in the air conditioning than be outside in the sun sweating my butt off. So we're just gonna have to ride the struggle bus. Nope. Bye-bye gasket. That actually went pretty smooth. Winning. All right. Now when you get this off, remember this little guy when I broke that fitting off in that U-pipe and we put a bunch of anti-seize on it? Let's hope that paid off today. Oh, yeah. Man. Came right off. Well, I'm glad I was nice to the next guy. All right, this is where things get hairy. This has never been apart before because I know that because it's got 10 millimeter heads. The replacement bolts have 13 millimeter heads. It is an M8 bolt, but for whatever reason they put 10 millimeter heads on them, and the heads like to round off. The bolts like to twist off. They'll act like they're turning and you think that they're coming out, but the bolt is just actually twisting and it's actually stuck in the exhaust manifold. Now, I've tried to heat these before. You know, I just haven't had a very good success rate with heat in that. It's like they either come out or they don't. Because right now, with the head on the bolt, that's the most amount of turning torque you're ever going to get. So it'd be nice if it would go. Oh boy. See, it's moving, but you never know if it's just twisting the bolt or if it's actually coming out. And I'm avoiding heating because I don't want to make the metal any harder than it already is. It's already harder than woodpecker lips. Those bolts are hard to drill out. You need a carbide or a cobalt bit with a 130, 135 degree angle head on it to even cut through those stupid things. It's turning, but I don't know if we're just twisting the bolt back and forth or what. Let's lube her up some more. Maybe if I can look in that hole, look at the backside. I don't know if I can tell if that's moving or not. Nope. Twisted it right off like it was nothing. And that's why I got a new exhaust manifold, because it's to the point where it almost ain't worth drilling those out anymore. For how much the manifold costs, it ain't worth my time fighting it for hours and hours. Oh, there's two. We're on a roll. Like I said, I've tried eating them before. It doesn't matter. MAP gas, acetylene, I've tried it all. In my opinion, heating just makes it worse. If you actually have to then extract the bolt and you heated everything up, it's hard to work with. Yep. We're 3 for 3. That's fun. Look out. I don't know if you can see that. See how much rust is in there? A lot. It's such a small bolt. You got the same bolts going into the EGR cooler. But you can't get to the back side of them to even spray anything in them. So, that one came out. I've actually shown on this channel getting those bolts drilled out. it was a long time-lapse video. Oh, I think that one just snapped. Maybe. Huh. One. Got one out. Get out of there. Wow. I've tried welding nuts onto those and tried to turn them out, and it just keeps breaking off further. It has become one with the manifold. I promise you that. I think it's time to take the outlet off the EGR cooler and just see how she's doing. Let's take a peek at that. Let's get this outlet pipe off. See what's lurking for us in there. All right, so we got one coolant line at the bottom of the cooler down here to get to. It's just got a 13mm bolt in it. All right, here's our turbo. So if you look, you can see there's not a whole lot of room for error for those turbo vanes in there. So any excessive shaft movement in those bearings is going to cause those vanes to rub in the exhaust housing and make the noise that we were hearing. So take your hand and move this shaft. Hear that? That's what we're hearing rubbing, making that noise at high RPM. But quite a bit of movement in that shaft. That's why she's making the noise. All right, so right now we're going to worry about getting all the other old studs out before we mess with the one that's broke off in the head. So the way that I do this is I thread one nut on like this. Are you going to go now? About like that. And we're going to take another nut, thread into it like that. And we're going to slam them together. Okay. We're going to take MAP gas and we're going to heat this up before we even start to move. Why? There. Okay. So we get that heat up a little bit. We're going to stick our wrench back on this and our impact. Come on. That's not budging. One. So you can see how long of a process this really is. Now you've seen how easy that was, not. So imagine how hard it's going to be to get one out that's broke off. You know, we had a ton of torque and ability to put a lot of torque to turn that out. And you've seen how hard that was to come out. So when you break one of those studs off in the head, it just becomes extremely difficult at times. Sometimes you get them right out, sometimes you don't. But that's a good sign right there of how hard the rest of this is going to be. Hey, look, I got them all out. Some came out real easy without heat. You know, of course, I try it before I heat it. And some just fought me tooth and nail. Like I had to heat them up 5 minutes, you know, on each side and let it cool a little bit and use my wrench and the impact just working it, finally get them loose. But they're all out. So now all we got left is that guy. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is take a Matco automatic centering punch. I really like this one because you can actually adjust how heavy or light you want it with this knob at the top. We got it cranked up all the way. So right now the most important thing is to try to get this hole straight, because there's a possibility we might have to drill it completely out. In worst case scenario, we'll have to put a helicoil in it, which can happen. Next step is we want something that's going to drill in there really good, so we're going to use the Matco Hyperstep bits. Just a few quick bursts. It looks pretty good. All right, so I drilled and drilled and drilled. I know on the camera angle it makes it look like I'm drilling it crooked, but I promise you I'm not. It's pretty straight. I don't know why it looks crooked on the time lapse, but I was drilling it straight. But I got it drilled out to 3/16, and I was just starting to drill it to 5/16, and I ran out of time. I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow. Hopefully that thing will behave in the morning and we'll be able to maybe pop an extractor in it and get it out possibly. So we'll just have to wait and see. I went ahead and packed up all my tools and everything and got it back in the truck, and I'm going to take off, and I will see you guys here back in the morning. Well, good morning. Well, I was on my way to go back to the 9510, but customer called and we got a kind of emergency to deal with. Customer's got a 8R 370, and there was a bird's nest on top of the engine, and let's just say there was a thermal event on top of the engine which melted a bunch of wires and sensor, sensors on the engine, so I can't get all the parts until tomorrow. They're actually trying to use the tractor to plant a field right now, and they got the planter completely full of beans, so I took the customer back to our shop to get an 8R410 for him to use. He's going to drive it out there. Me and Jarrett, one of our AMS guys, are headed back out to the tractor. I had to get some air jacks because I'm going to have to jack up the tongue of the planter and get it off the 3-point, and then we're going to have to tow the tractor out of the way and then get the 8R410 hooked up and get all this stuff swapped over so that he can continue to plant. So we're on our way out to the tractor right now, and I'll show you guys what we're dealing with. There it is. Of course, it's down. Engine doesn't want to run. Stop codes. It's not happy. It's got a 1795 planter on it. Alright, so we got air jack on the tongue. It will pick it up. I picked it up off the 3-point a little bit. We're unplugging all the hoses and the electrical and everything. Get that undone, and then we can tow this thing forward. Alright, so we got everything unhooked. We will have to swap that PTO generator over to the other tractor, and I'm kind of hoping all the hydraulic hookups are the same on the 8R410. I'm gonna lift this up. Oh, looky there. Oh, yeah. We're golden. I'm going to put a pin in that. There we go. Wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be. So I pulled the fuse for the come home mode to activate the electric steering and braking system. Hear that? Turn your steering wheel so it's engaged. Now put it in neutral. So it should have pumped the park brake off right now. So we're actually going to pull it with the FAV, see what happens.
Unsurpassed torque, guts, glory, Ram.
Man, I couldn't even tell that thing was back there. I just put it in drive and just like barely gave it any throttle and it just started towing it. Fav 2 for the win. Alright, so now I'm going to work on getting this PTO generator out. It's just 2 18s and I can slide it out. It is all swapped over. Get him all going, Jarrett. Planting like a champ. Good job. All right, now we're going to tow this tractor across the field all the way over to that bin site. Truck won't care. All right, here we go. Can't see him yet. This thing tows this tractor like it's not even there. It's getting a little tougher right there. Get some momentum built up. Running about 10 miles an hour. Are you a believer in Cummins power now? All right, now we can finally go to the 9510R, but now it's noon, so I was wanting to get that tractor done today, but not going to get it all done today, so I went ahead and moved all my other appointments a day. So I'm booked out right now is what I'm saying. All right, and we're back at the 9510R. So I'm going to try to put a screw extractor into that stud now that I've got it drilled out pretty good, and just see if it turns this morning. I let it soak with some deep creep overnight. Let's see if we can pull off the win. Okay, so that screw, the stud kind of had some burrs and stuff around there, so I had taken a circular die grinder double cut carbide bit and kind of cleaned that up just right at the edge so the threads would not catch on crud and junk and stuff, or the little burrs from the stud. I drilled into it a little bit. It's drilled all the way through 3/16. It's an M10 stud. And then I started to drill into it with a quarter left-handed drill bit, wouldn't turn it, and then I stuck a 5/16 hyper step bit, Matco, in there and drilled it out some. But I'm going to use this 7/32 snap-on spiral fluided screw extractor. These work really good. I'm going to stick that in there and give her a little tap. And now that we've kind of relieved some pressure by drilling all the way through it, so the stud will kind of crush in a little bit. Let's see what happens. Is it moving? I think it's moving. Oh my goodness. I better go buy a lottery ticket, 'cause I am lucky. Come on, baby. For the win. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. See, I drilled it out pretty straight. It's not too bad. Yes. Nothing makes you happier than that. Now that we got all the studs out, we're going to tap the holes with this special M10 by 1.5 rolling tap. So a rolling tap, also known as a form tap, actually deforms the metal to make threads. It doesn't cut. It kind of deforms the metal and shapes it into a thread, so you're not actually taking material out of the hole, which creates a stronger thread. This is just what Deere recommends to use. So we have these special taps, these rolling taps, in order to retap those holes. But if there's a bunch of junk and metal and material in the hole, you don't want to use this because there's hardly any fluting on these whatsoever. So there's nowhere for the material to go once it's kind of cut. Also, this tap is kind of extra hard, so if you have a lot of resistance in there, you can easily break one of these off inside the hole, and you do not want to do that. So I kind of just approach it with caution and go through, tap all the holes out. I'm going to use a snap-on tap socket and a snap-on speed ratchet. So this handle actually spins, and you can use it into a speed ratchet just like that. Kind of cool. So all the holes are tapped, got the gasket surfaces clean. Went ahead and replaced all the O-rings on these coolant tubes. You want to go ahead and set those in there. Don't put them in, but just set them in, okay? Because if you put those long studs in, then you won't be able to get them in after the fact. So I'm going to go in and we're going to put these longer studs in there. See, if you were to put that stud in, you wouldn't be able to get that tube in there. So I'm going to put all these studs in and torque them to 221 inch-pounds, except I'm not going to put these two in. Because if you put these two in, the exhaust manifold actually will not slide onto the studs. It'll hit this thermostat housing. Normally you would have this deleted out of your way, have the studs in, then the exhaust manifold would slide in, but it won't. So I'm going to try to put all of them in but those two, and once the manifold's on, I'm going to try to sneak the gasket and the studs in the hole. All right, so I got the back half of the exhaust manifold off, and I got all the sealing rings off. That, of course, went into here. So I've got the new manifold here. So I got to put in a new wavy washer sealing ring, and then a normal ring goes in there like that. Anyway, that ring goes in there, and then the 4 rings go on here, and there is a gap. Kind of looks like a snap ring, but I'm just going to put the gaps. You just clock them 180 degrees from each other. So I'll get that on, and we'll slide the manifold on. Okay, so I got the manifold just kind of started on the studs there. On this end, I took the 2 studs, stuck it through the hole, and then used the gasket to kind of hold the studs into place. So hopefully I can get that close enough and get that started on there. Oh yeah, that's a win. Before I put the spacers and the nuts on there, I'm going to get those coolant bypass tubes into place. See these tubes? Got to get those into place. Plus they come together right there. I got to put them together. So I'm going to get those in, and then we can start putting spacers and nuts on, torquing that down. All the spacers and nuts are installed. I just snugged them down with the stubby. Now all I got to do is go in and torque them to spec, 18 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in that sequence. So I'm going to get that done real quick. Torqued. Now what I'm going to do real quick before I leave here today, I'm going to get the new turbo and the EGR cooler out of the box, and I'm just going to set the new turbo up there and set the EGR into place. I'm going to pack up my tools and head back to the shop for the day. There. It's all downhill from here. Just got to get, everything hooked back up and torqued to spec, but the hard part's done. And there it is, all back together, with all the new fixins and torque to spec. What a beautiful specimen. So now I just got to fill this thing up with coolant, and then I'm going to have to hook my laptop up to it, and we're going to have to relearn the VGT turbo so the actuator position can get relearned for our new turbocharger. And then we'll be able to fire this thing up. There's going to be a little smoke coming from the turbo and the exhaust manifold once things get a little warm, because they're just kind of coated in a protective oil coating. So that stuff will burn off. We'll just fire it up and get it warm enough to get the coolant circulating, get it topped off. I'll get the hood back down. Then I'm just going to pull this tractor outside, and then we'll let it run outside for a while and get hot and burn all that stuff off. So I'm going to get some coolant in it. All right, so we're going to do the VGT learn value reset. And we're just going to hit OK. And then you just exit the calibration, turn the key off for 120 seconds, and then turn the key on for 30 seconds, and you'll hear the VGT actuator move and relearn its position. Okay. Key on. I told you it was gonna smoke like crazy. All that oil on the turbo and exhaust manifold to keep it from rusting as it sits on the park shelf forever. That'll burn off pretty quick. But no leaks. You can hear it sizzling. Oh, wonderful. Now we're outside. I'm gonna let it run and burn off and check for leaks. And this thing's running like a champ. Listen how quiet it is. It's at wide open throttle in here. Smooth. All right, well, the tractor's happy, I'm happy, customer's happy, everybody's happy, happy, happy. So that's gonna do it for this video. Appreciate you guys watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, comment below, let me know how I'm doing. Until next time, keep that green iron moving.